Chief Franklin approached me about ordering pins for all officers and staff to wear in remembrance of 9/11. This year is the 20th anniversary of the tragic event, and he wanted to commemorate it by having each officer be authorized to wear the pin on their uniform. It's a 3/8 by 1 3/8 bar pin. They're going to be integrated into the officers' uniforms. There's 2 twin towers on there. There's also the pentagon, so a 5-sided shape towards the bottom of those twin towers, and also inside of that is a keystone for the plane that crashed in Pennsylvania. There's an American flag and the dates 9/11/01, 9/11/21, just to commemorate the 20-year anniversary of 9/11.
The plane just hit
What?
737.
What?
The World
Who
Trade
are you
Center.
talking to? Oh, God. Oh, my God.
On September 11, 2001, I was working here in Rochester as a patrol officer. I was assigned to the night shift.
I was working on shift. I remember I stepped into the government center downtown, and the TV was on in the break room.
My wife woke me up and said, something's wrong, a plane hit a building in New York.
I was scared. There was a lot of unknowns, a lot of questions in my mind throughout that whole shift. And I knew I wasn't alone. There was a lot of us that were working that had no idea, what had really transpired.
The department had actually called in off-duty officers. We had extra staffing in the city. We had people positioned at key points.
I remember we had officers posted around the government center to be on lookout. We were to be looking, for suspicious activity around, the city. I know we sent extra officers to the airport.
We didn't have rifles in the patrol cars at that time, so those officers that were on the shift who were members of the ERU, they were directed to pick up their rifles and keep them in their car, which was really kind of unprecedented stuff in Rochester. For at least a decade afterwards, certainly any type of suspicious activity that normally would have been seen as routine generated police calls and police response. Tourists in Rochester taking pictures of the Gonda building would generate a police response.
It happens to be my wife's birthday, September 11th, and it has never been the same. I'm thinking about the sacrifices that all these men and women made, especially in the first responder profession, and then that assisted the injured, the ones that ran towards this thinking, this could have been me. This could have been anybody in our community, any law enforcement agency, anywhere in our country. We go to help, at the time of need, and we don't think twice. And it really makes you reflect. It really humbles you, and it makes you grateful that you're still here.
It validated every reason why I wanted to be a police officer. It made me recognize the bond and solidarity you have with first responders and officers, because if I worked in New York City and I was working the day shift, that would have been me, and you realize that that those are, that's a job, and all those people that didn't go home that day, that hits home.
What are those people gonna do? All the elevators are blocked out.
I was part of the Honor Guard, and we were actually training up at Camp Ripley.
The Honor Guard is a group of officers that are highly trained to help with law enforcement, funerals, and formal events.
We were in the chapel at the time, and we had gotten word that one of the towers were hit.
So now what was a beautiful fall day for doing training now was turned into everybody scrambling to leave Camp Ripley and head back to their home agencies to face whatever challenges were going to be in front of them.
So it was a very long drive back to Rochester, and then I was given the post and the task to guard the mosque that night. I made sure I gave my daughter an extra hug, told her I loved her, because I didn't honestly know if I would be coming back the next day. So, which is something that we deal with in this profession anyway, but it felt more real that night.
I think once I finally got home and got settled, I was sitting outside, and maybe it was just kind of looking up at the sky and realizing there are no planes flying anywhere. And we're now in a different reality, in a different future going forward, and not knowing what it is, and being just sitting there realizing the whole world had changed. Well, to me, it's important to remember those that sacrificed and lost their lives, committing heroic acts, going in to save their fellow citizens and doing the job that they were sworn to do.
Ma'am, say your prayers. We're going to think positive because you got to help each other get off the floor. Now,
So I was part of the 3rd Infantry Division out of Fort Stewart, Georgia. We were deployed to Kosovo, to Camp Bonnesteel. So it was kind of a shock. All right, you got to think I'm on a base camp with 1,000 Army people, so we're starting to think, okay, what's next? What's the next step? It's kind of where it was and what the discussions were. What's the next step that we do, and how do we retaliate for what just happened? I mean, it made us more convinced in our missions.
Every generation has those iconic or those moments where, you know, you don't forget where you were. For my parents, it was the Kennedy assassination, and obviously, for me, it was 9/11.